So this is the row of 4 here that I'm going to begin with my darker yellow. So I'm actually going to go down here with my waist knot and stitch again from away from the waist knot towards the waist knot. I am going to complete the half stitches and then cross them back over on the way back. At this point I can trim off my waist knot. And just show you the back. That's where the waist knot was. The thread's thoroughly trapped behind these neat stitches here. Now because I'm going to just go up and do just these couple of stitches here, these 3 stitches on their own, I'm going to do half stitches on the way up and then cross them back on the way down. By stitching it all the way up and then all the way down, I'm avoiding having to make any big leaps from the top right back down to here. Just avoid having to do too much of a jump on the back of the fabric if you can. I'll do these 2 and then I'll just carry on stitching down to here. One thing that can prove a bit tricky is when you come to do stitches like this, where you've only got 2 to do in the middle of a sort of blank area. That's the only 2 pink stitches there that need to be completed on their own. And obviously using a waist knot in that situation isn't ideal because you've only got 2 stitches to trap it behind. One little technique you can use is to actually, when you're threading up your needle, I've already traded this with Thread Heaven, when you're threading up your needle, take just one strand of the cotton, take the 2 ends together and thread those through. So what you've threaded on your needle is actually a loop. So there you can see I've got the loop at the bottom. So when you come to stitch this, you come up in exactly the right place from the back, but don't pull all the way through. Go back in the opposite corner of the square, turn it over and loop your needle through that end and pull, and that creates your first stitch and it's really secure. So then after completing these 2 stitches together, just these 2, I sort of call them floating stitches because they're just sort of on their own floating in the air. What you can do is tuck your end underneath them as normal, but because you've done the beginning in that way, you've only got to do one end in this way. And if you possibly can, if you can grab a tiny bit of the eider as well without making sure that you're not poking through to the front, that'll give it a little bit more stability as well, because the eider's quite tight, so that should hold actually, so that your stitches are actually as secure as you can get them. If you find that too difficult and you really can't manage it, just knot it. Nobody will ever know. It really doesn't matter, just knot it. On this blue one, I actually tried the waist knot method, and that's the back of the blue one. That does look pretty secure. That's the pink one, where I did the loop start. And on the green one, I did a loop start as well. I think the loop starts are a little bit more secure. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to complete the back stitching, which is really the nicest part, I think, of doing a cross stitch, because once you've done all your whole stitches, I've done quite a lot at the moment, I haven't quite finished doing them. But once you've finished your hole stitches, this is the thing that really makes them stand out and look absolutely fantastic. It's like putting the black edging on a cartoon. It's lovely, and that's quite easy and rewarding, so I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. I'm going to show you now how to do the back stitching. So on your plan it explains that you need to use the dark grey, and you just use one strand of the cotton, and the back stitching is all marked on the plan with this thick black line here. So to prepare your thread, you just grab your grey, remove just one strand, treat with Thread Heaven if you choose to, and thread your needle just through one end like that. Okay, the best way to start back stitching in my view is to just do a knot, because it's going to be really secure. Trying to trap that effectively underneath some stitches is going to be ineffectual. It's just going to slip out. So I'm going to do some of the bucket for you. So I'll begin, because this bucket has got some really long parts of back stitching, and it's a bad idea to do all this long line in one go, because it will possibly go baggy and be a bit saggy. So we don't really want that. The best thing to do is do half and then the other half, and you get a much nicer effect. So to begin with, I'm just going to choose to start at the end here. I'm going to go up in the correct place where I want to start. Carefully refer to my plan for exactly where to go down. And here I'm just going to go to the very end and just tie a knot. So one, I go under one thread and under the other. That's what I tend to do. Not quite as near the end as I hoped it would be, but that's okay. There's plenty of thread in this kit. Now, with back stitching, it's really important that you go ahead and then back to where you were. That's why it's called back stitching. And the reason that you would do it that way is so that you can get the lines to join up really neatly. So here I'm going to go up here and then back to meet where I was. And by doing it this way, you can see I can exactly, with my eyes, line up this needle with exactly the right place on the eider and make it meet the black line that I had there before perfectly. I've got to do a long line now here across here, and as I said, you mustn't do that in one go. It's a bad idea. So just do, say, 3 or 4 absolute maximum, and you go back to meet your previous black line. And then carry on. This one goes to there, and you back stitch back to where you were. And make sure you don't pull too hard, because if you pull too hard at this stage, pull too hard here, what's going to happen is you're going to create a hole in the eider there, which will look ridiculous. So just make sure that you just pull gently. Now on the plan here, the back stitching shows that the line starts here, but here it doesn't go to a normal hole, it goes in between, in the middle of a square. So just the way to do that is just look closely at where you think it falls and just basically force your needle down into the eider at that point. So it comes up here, and I'm just going to basically place it there, which is roughly where it explains on the plan. And as you can see, it brings a slope to the right hand side of that bucket, which is what we want. Another thing it does on this plan as well is the back stitching goes and ends in the middle of a square, and again you just get your needle and you force it down into the eider at that point. It shouldn't take too much force to complete. So I have to go up here and down, force it down in the middle of the square. You have to push quite hard sometimes. The sharper your needle is, the easier that will be. You see there, that looks really nice. So you just go around and keep a really close eye on your plan and just always back stitch to where you were before. If you try and do it in the most logical way you can, that's the most sensible thing to do, and you'll end up with a really nice finish.